I'm Melissa with Sentimental Salvage and Design, and thank you for joining me again this week. And this project I'm pretty excited about. So this is a paper mache owl that I created, about a year ago. And he's been patiently waiting for finishing. So today is the day. So let's get started. I'm going to be using IOD's Wings and Feathers mold. The Wings and Feathers mold to add feathers kind of all over him. So we're going to start with that. So I have my cornstarch ready and my clay. Okay. So let's get going. Let's make a couple. Now I'm originally thinking that one of these wings I might be able to, let's start with those. Let's make these wings first. Dust with cornstarch and then take a chunk of clay. The wings take quite a bit because they're big. So I'm just going to push the clay in, and I push it out from the center to the outside edge as I'm going. And the micro rim helps guide your mold. You get a nice finished edge with that micro rim. I have a bigger putty knife somewhere, but I don't know where it is at this moment. I'm still not completely organized in my new craft space. Still trying to figure out where everything is. There's one. And I'm just wanting to see if it'll fit here with a little bit of tweaking. If I can manipulate that a little bit. I think that's actually kind of perfect. I'm gonna need a way to stabilize this guy. So I'm just got these two cloths and I'm going to use them to kind of stabilize him so he doesn't wiggle around on me. I like to spread the glue all the way to the edges so that I get good adhesion with this guy. So I'm gently kind of pushing it in a direction it doesn't normally go. But that's the joys of the clay, is that you can kind of manipulate that. Okay, so I've just gone ahead and sped this part up, because I'm just making molds and applying the molds to the owl. So this is something that's just kind of visualize what you want your end product to look like and then just create accordingly. So the fun part about the clay is that you can manipulate it so much and get it to kind of bend and form how you want it to. And so I'm just gonna kind of eyeball where I want the feathers to be on his tail, and then I'm just gonna start gluing it down. And I've glued molds down to projects before and then scraped them all off because I didn't like how it turned out. So, but that's kind of how I work. I'm not really good at seeing. I have to actually start working on it before, and then I kind of know what I like. So I'm just making these same 4 feathers. I'm pretty much doing this whole bird with these same 4 feathers, minus those 2 on his wings. And you'll see he's got some creepy eyeballs coming up here. But yeah, just keep creating and keep placing and overlapping, and it's just a process. And this does take longer, but it's you kind of zone out and either put on a good audiobook or some great music and just craft away. And I just cut off chunks of the clay that I don't need. I always save these little bits in my jar, and then I just spritz them with distilled water and they'll kind of reconstitute themselves. So I never throw out any chunks of clay like that. And same thing on his little head piece going on here. I just overlap those 2 and cut them with the knife on a 45, so it kind of gives me a nice joint. So I didn't get painting him filmed. I don't know what the heck happened there, but so he's all painted, and there you can see his little googly eyes. And now I'm just making the feathers, those same 4 feathers, but I'm only making about 1/3 of each one because I'm going to be overlapping these, and I don't want all that excess thickness and just the excess feather that I'm going to just cut off. This step was time consuming, but it really didn't use a lot of clay. I think for this whole project, I used less than a half a brick of clay. I'm also adding more to his head and to around his eyes, just to give a little bit more of that, I don't know, feathery owl look, I guess. I decided that I was not going to add feathers to his entire body. It's just going to be way too much. It's doable, but I didn't have the gumption to add feathers to his whole body. Now it's time for another coat of paint. So the reason why I paint when the molds are wet is to slow down the drying process. I've mentioned before I live in a really dry climate, so the molds, the clay dries super fast, and then I get some pretty massive cracking. So to try to alleviate that a little bit, I will paint the molds when they're still wet, and that just kind of helps. It slows it down. Now I don't want to keep making feathers and making feathers and making feathers till the end of time, so I decided I was going to cheat, and I'm going to be using drywall compound to kind of give the illusion of feathers and add texture to the parts of this owl that I didn't apply molds to. I kind of give it a go here with this little plastic paint knife, and I'm just trying to apply it and trying to get a feel for how to create the look that I want. That wasn't working, so then I grabbed the metal paint knife and I start working with that, and it's still not doing what I want it to do. But sometimes the way that my system works from brain to hands is a little bit complicated. I have to start working on something before I get a feel for how it's going to turn out how I want it to turn out, if that makes any sense whatsoever. So usually when I start something, it's all wrong. And then once I get going at it and I kind of get a feel for how what's going to work, then I can give her and there's no issues. But it takes me a bit sometimes, and this is kind of painful at first with this one. But I get some product on here, and luckily it's not a super quick drying product, so I was able to play with it a little bit and until I got the look that I wanted. What ended up working for me was applying the compound with this bigger paint knife, and that just made, well, I didn't like it at first because it just made the feathers seem a little bit too big. So then I took this smaller putty knife, or paint knife, sorry, and went over it all, creating smaller feathers everywhere that I wanted that extra texture. So I just kind of added it all to the back of his head, the insides of his wings, and around his neck. And I kind of smoothed out a little bit of the finish around his face too. That ended up giving me the look that I liked a lot better. So now we're on the next day, and all of the drywall compound is dry, and it's getting another full and final coat of paint over everything. So the paint that I'm using is Fusion's Carriage House, and it's a really nice kind of a sagey green. I really like it. And I don't know why I went with green for this owl, but I don't know. I just do what the piece tells me to do. So again, there's a whole step that did not record. I'm really struggling with cameras not working how they're supposed to work. So basically what I did is I created a wash. You can see it in the top right hand corner of the screen. That is a wash created with Fusion's Oakum and a little bit of cast iron. And I just wanted to create a really dark, almost black brown. And then I watered it down. It's not quite 50-50. I'd say about a quarter, 1 part water to 3 parts paint. And I brushed it on the owl, and then I wiped it back with a wet cloth. I just kind of wiped over it. So all of that dark wash sat in the deep parts. And you can see in the texture on his belly, on those wings, it really or on those feathers, it really kind of set in there and gave a lot of depth. Now, because I'm on this whole metallic copper kick for some weird reason, I'm dry brushing metallic copper on the high points of all of his texture and feathers and all of that fun stuff. I think he turned out kind of interesting. I like the difference in depth of color with the green and then that brown wash, and now with the copper highlights. I think he looks pretty cool. I'm happy with him. I hope this video inspired you to get out there and create something with your own two hands. So this little owl started out as nothing but some balloons and some paper mache, and now he's just, I think he's adorable. Well, he's kind of creepy adorable, but I still like him. Those eyes are weird. Thanks so much for joining me. See you next time.